Good afternoon. I am Adam Lupel, IPI Vice President, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to today's truly special event, Voices of SDG 16 Plus Stories for Global Action. Taking place, as I'm sure you're all aware, on the sidelines of the 2019 High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. This event is the product of a really tremendous collaborative effort. It started as a vision among Safer World, TAP Network, and IPI about the need to bring civil society leaders from around the world to New York for the HLPF to help expand the space and access for civil society at a time when we all recognize this space is shrinking in many parts of the world because it is being contested or worse, violently attacked. This vision to bring the voice and work of civil society from around the world to New York soon transformed into a global campaign, thanks to our partners that have contributed financially and in kind and in spirit to this initiative. It is a fantastic and big group, and so I'd like to recognize each of them in the room. Conciliation Resources, Article 19, Peace Direct, Global Partnership for the Prevention of Armed Conflict, Civil Society Platform for Peace Building and State Building, World Vision, Justice for All, Pax Christi, Life and Peace Institute, and Namati. We would also like to thank the government of Switzerland and DFID Global Alliance for their contributions. And I'd like to pause to personally give a big shout out to the SDGs team at IPI, Jimena Leyva, Masuma Ramati. You have inspired us all throughout this endeavor, or at least me for sure. This, that whole list there, I mean, this initiative really attests to the power of partnership. It truly is goal 17 in action. And it is a reminder that we can do more and be better when we act in coordination and in solidarity. And that is an important reminder at a time of widening division. Together, we were able to produce a global video campaign to showcase civil society work on the SDGs. We received over 150 videos, all conveying stories of change on the 2030 agenda, and particularly SDG 16 plus. Among those 150, today we have with us civil society champions from Afghanistan, Cameroon, Canada, Guatemala, India, Pakistan, Kenya, Nepal, Nigeria, the Philippines, Somaliland, and Uganda. They are here to share with us their stories and their expertise. They will remind us of the practical realities on the ground that are all too often overlooked at the national and especially the global levels. For those of you who perhaps are regulars at IPI, you'll notice this is not a traditional policy forum for us. We have modified our usual format to allow for the rich diversity of these finalists that you see here. This event will be a little bit longer than normal, and so Jimena asked me to tell you to feel free to stretch your legs a little bit, do a little bit of this if you need to, as we transition from one panel to the next. We also, I mean, it's a crowded space back there, but you'll notice we have a graphic recorder from ImageThink there at the back of the room who will be helping us to represent our discussion visually, and we'll be taking nice pictures of all these things later and posting them online, and I'm really looking forward to that. So we'll kick off the event by showing a video compilation of the finalists, and then my colleague Jimena will moderate our first panel.
I am Majid Sultan from Youth Without Borders organization, which is a local NGO based in Yemen. Our main focus is youth engagement in peace building and social cohesion and coexistence. And as you know, Yemen is one of the war-affected countries, so our work is very important in such situation. We are doing best to contribute in achieving the SDG.
I'm Sufia Ramyar, an Afghan citizen who's passionate about peace. I have been leading Afghans for Progressive Thinking, the largest youth organization that works with youth and children to promote critical thinking and a peaceful, just, and inclusive society. The programs I have designed and implemented have impacted over 20,000 people directly across the country. Some of these activities include debate training and tournaments around heated topics, including SDGs, particularly SDG 16.
Hi, my name is Kasia Sequoia Slavner. I'm a Gen Z filmmaker, photographer, and social justice advocate. I started the Global Sunrise Project so I could create positive media showcasing resilient changemakers who are finding solutions to the world's most pressing issues. I have now been actively involved with the Canadian Voice of Women for Peace for 7 years. My ultimate goal is to help youth become informed about the issues and to feel confident taking action on an SDG they care about.
I am Arlisa Bianca Pavotoy, the Project Officer of We Peace. Through collaborative efforts of CPE's local partners across the country, we train, monitor, and support women by empowering women to actively engage in building and promoting peace in their communities. We hope to meet SDG 16.1's target of significantly reducing all forms of violence and conflict-related deaths in the Philippines.
This is Rudrani and from India, and this is my friend Ramsha Balaj from Pakistan. So together we've founded Chai Ki Dukaan. Chai Ki Dukaan is a democratic platform which wants to fill the cyberspace with relatable stories of socio-cultural similarities and shared love.
I came up with a project called the Youth E-Space, the Youth Engagement and Empowerment Spaces, basically to bridge the gap between the government and the young people. Through the E-Space, the young people come together, draft their issues and come up with strategic solutions, which they in turn now submit and share it with their leaders.
AVP is short for Alternatives to Violence Program. We are fitting into the Sustainable Development Goal number 16 about peace and justice. And we use the grassroots approach, whereby we go to the communities where the people are, where the conflicts are happening.
घर चाहिँ गोदावरी नगरपालिका छ, देवी चौरमा पर्छ। देवी चौर भने चाहिँ अब गोदावरी परे पनि अब पहाड साइडमा छ। अनि त्यसमा चाहिँ मैले पहिला यो नागरिक आवाजबाट सद्भाव कार्यक्रममा शान्ति स्वयंसेवक भएर काम गरेको थिएँ भने अहिले चाहिँ शान्तिदूतको रूपमा काम गर्दै छु। र मेरो साथमा 16 जना भोलिन्टियर साथीहरु पनि हुनुहुन्छ। भोलिन्टियर साथीहरु चाहिँ सबै आफ्नो टोलको हुन्छ। उहाँहरुले चाहिँ सामुदायिक स्तरमा आएका समस्याहरुलाई मसँग भन्नुहुन्छ र त्यहाँ के आवश्यक छ, अब सकारात्मक सोच, नेतृत्व विकास।
We have been able to work on violence against women target of the goal 16 of SDG. We've been working with societies in Ondo State to talk to stakeholders, to sensitize, to campaign so that we can reduce violence against women and trafficking.
We also campaign against female genital mutilation.
Tim Parry Jonathan Ball Peace Foundation works to equip groups and individuals with leadership skills to become active peace builders and agents of change in their own communities. We are proud to be working to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly SDG 16+. We seek to broaden perspectives by exploring commonalities between people's experiences, as we believe that communities can prevent, resolve, and respond to their own conflicts.
in Alternative Action is a women's human rights organization that works to promote the rights of women, girls, and children in Cameroon and beyond. One of our key areas of intervention is on peace and security. And from the field, we realized that the population even is not aware of, some of these SDGs. So we have a role as civil society to inform the population.
Nuestro país, Guatemala, mujer es discriminada, es más vulnerable ante la población. Desde esta institución, pues ahora se está el programa de capacitación para las mujeres, en donde se les están enseñando diferentes temas como derechos humanos, derechos de la mujer, de la niñez, sobre el tema también.
Center for Policy Analysis, in collaboration with the Somaliland SDG 16 Plus Coalition, organized a youth leadership training program in Somaliland. At the end of the training, CPA organized field visits that the trainees paid to the highest offices of the country. This initiative is to directly promote youth inclusion in Somaliland and to contribute to realization of SDG 16.7.
Hi everyone, I'm Sofia Dayan Katindi Garcia from the Philippines, and I am the local coordinator of the Young Women Plus for Peace and Leadership, formerly known as Girl Plus Ambassadors for Peace. Presently, our members are organizing community youth discussions on young people's role in the BOL, the elections, and constitutional change. And we have reached 300 youth leaders across the country, and we hope to reach at least twice as many. We hope these will mobilize our fellow youth who have the potential to change the political future of our country.
So we shall begin this panel, and I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for coming all the way to New York. We are the ones to be honored to have you. And all of these, they are more than storytellers. They are bringing the local expertise to the New York bubble. We really need that type of perspective, a reality taking and perspective, and it's this morning has been all about that, just putting our work into perspective and realizing that the SDGs have been a platform that also helps civil society in the ground at the local level and have become a universal language of change. So with that, I will turn now to our first speakers, who is a dynamic duo from India and Pakistan, Chaiki Duncan, my colleagues Chatra and Rudrani. Please, you have the floor. Oh, Ramsha, go ahead. And the microphones. Ramsha.
Good afternoon. Me and her, we are from India and Pakistan. And together we are a classic example of a family that got partitioned in 1947, became hostile neighbors across the border, perennially on the edge of war with each other, in spite of sharing socio-cultural memories. During the 1947 partition, my mother's family migrated from India to the newly carved state of Pakistan. Pre-partition narratives, according to my grandmother, seemed like the ultimate utopia, where Hindus and Muslims lived in harmony. Though she lost more than half of her family in this collective migration of sorrow, my grandmother never speaks ill of the land she still considers home. 72 years later, I still do not have the answers to what went wrong. At the age of 14, I was exposed to distorted historic narratives in textbooks, excerpts that offended me as a woman, like the enemy ran off like women, or our soldiers acted like tigers and falcons, and the enemies like hyenas. Though they seemed ridiculous, I had to reproduce this content without my consent. After all, I had to pass my exams. I, however, made a conscious choice to collaborate with like-minded people, to revision and represent narratives, and confront national myths on both sides. I remember the terrible Indo-Pak Kargil War in 1999. I remember my uncle telling me that I must pray that Pakistan loses the war because they are the enemy. I remember my mother mourning over pictures of dead Indian soldiers in the newspapers as society and media told me to hate Pakistan. But the problem was I just couldn't. I chose to doubt. And many years later, when I traveled to Pakistan for the first time in 2017 for her wedding, I realized I had been wrong all those years to doubt. Pakistani people are not the enemy. From our friendship was born Chai Ki Dukaan, which means the tea shop in Urdu and Hindi. Chai Ki Dukaan facilitates, or is rather, a democratic digital peace-building platform for Indians and Pakistanis to dialogue across borders. And drawing insights from this communication, we plan to develop policy instruments, fellowships, and toolkits for Indo-Pak collaborations. We are planning to change minds one at a time, teaching or telling Indians and Pakistanis not to hate each other using online narratives. We have about 1,500 people online who already support our cause and also being supported by mainstream media. And we are always looking for partners in our cause.
Inspired by SDG 16+, Chai Ki Dukaan is a borderless and digital platform which showcases showcases and amplifies narratives of friendship between Indians and Pakistanis. We aspire to counter jingoism, especially in a locus where voices of peace tend to get lost. We ask you to tell us why India and Pakistan should reconcile using the hashtag Chai Ki Dukaan. We intend to bring peace to over 1 billion people, and for that, we need collective action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was it's a fantastic way to start off the event. Now we will turn to Kate Flatley, Women's Justice Initiative in Guatemala. And this feels a little bit, I don't know who has seen the movie Trading Places, because I'm from Guatemala and Kate's from the United States, but she's working in Guatemala and I'm working in the United States. So it also shows the universal and that we're all kind of like citizens of the world. So Kate, you have the floor.
Thank you, Jimena. You know, first I would just like to say that I regret that my colleagues who are working on the front lines can't be here today to share our work with you, but I will do my best to represent the incredible work they're doing on the ground. So the Women's Justice Initiative, or WJI, focuses on increasing access to justice for Indigenous women and girls in Guatemala and combating gender-based violence through a four-pronged approach. We educate women and girls on their rights through our legal literacy programs. We then train community paralegals, or what we call community advocates, so that they can serve as that first defense and support to women in their communities who need help or are survivors of violence. We increase access. We do that by bringing paralegals and lawyers directly to the communities where we work and eliminating linguistic, economic, and geographic barriers that exist. All of our work is implemented in the local Kaqchikel Maya language. And finally, we engage with key decision makers and influencers in the region where we work. That includes judges, police, traditional Indigenous leaders, religious leaders, sensitizing them to the issues of violence against women and girls and access to justice and how they can begin to improve their responses to survivors and improve how the system is supporting these women with their cases. I think the best way to speak about our work is to illustrate the work that we're doing through one of our participants. So one comes to mind is Claudia, who participated in our women's rights education program. Claudia is a survivor of violence. She's endured violence, domestic violence for years and years, decades. And when she began participating in our program, she said, you know, it took a few months for her to begin to realize that what she was living in her home was actually violence against women, and to understand that there are legal protections and recourse for her as an individual. She talked about that transformation of finally feeling like she had a voice and value as an individual. As part of our legal literacy program, we bring paralegals and lawyers to the communities. And Claudia spoke to us about the first time the lawyer visited, she was scared and she didn't want to speak to her. And she was scared to approach her and talk about her case. The next month when our lawyer came back, again, she was nervous and didn't approach her. She wasn't quite ready. Then it was the third month of participating in that program that she went to our lawyer and started to seek help for the violence she was facing in her home. We've been able to work with Claudia to not only get a restraining order and file a criminal complaint against her abuser, but also title the land that she was living on in her name. So now she has that legal protection to her home and her land. She told us after going through this process that for the first time in her life, she feels safe in her home, which I think is an incredibly powerful statement and hard for some of us to understand, but is just changing generations in these communities when we can build safe homes and communities for women and girls. I think this story just highlights something that really is important to talk about in terms of grassroots work around SDG 16, which is that access to justice can't just mean providing legal services. You need to know the law to be able to use the law. And so in order to truly reach women and girls and marginalized populations, we have to ensure that we're educating individuals on the laws that exist and how they can begin to use the system to exercise their rights. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kate. Next, we turn to all over the world from Nepal. And Dr. Chatra told us that Nepal is sandwiched between two big giants. You know who they are. Dr. Chatra, what does Nagarik Awaz mean, and why are you in New York?
Nagarik Awaz, Nagarik means citizen, and Awaz means voice. So I'm in New York because to bring the voice of the voiceless, what we're doing for them as an organization, in the peace building organization. To begin with, I also would like to inform you that the video was prepared by our senior documentation officer, Ganga Rai, and he was supposed to come here. Unfortunately, he was denied visa. And at the last moment, since I was holding the visa and I was also the chair of the Nagarik Awaz, I had to come in his place. So this also is the bitter reality that those who are supposed to be here are denied access. And Nagarik Awaz is an organization which was established in 2001 after the Royal Massacre, and also there was Maoist insurgency going on. And due to that, a lot of youth and women were displaced from their homes. They were homeless, they were suffering, they were raped, women were raped from both sides. So it was utter misery. And seeing that helplessness, we thought, like-minded 4 or 5 people, that we must do something in a small way. So Rita Thapa, our founder, she started this organization in her house in a little room. That's how it started. And we believe that we believe in practicality and holistic approach. So to these displaced youth and women who were in the beginning, they wanted to take revenge. They were in the revenge mode, and they were shelterless. They had no food. They had no job. So what we did was we tried to give them shelter by sponsorship. I also sponsored 2 youths at a time, and we gave them shelter. We gave them platform. We used to have monthly interaction program where we brought in experts and all that, and they would listen to their voices, stories. In the beginning, the women and youth who would not look at each other, thinking that this is from the other side, gradually they realized after listening to the stories that they are in fact the victim. You know, it is nothing to do with the government side or the Maoist side. So that's how, and then we started a peace kitchen where we feed them every week. It has been going on for 17 years. And also we have placed them in job. There are 2 conflict-affected young lads who now, after entering to Nagarik Awaz, after mentoring, they have educated, they are our staff now. So this is what we believe in, and that together we can. And in a global community, I I request you to go through our website, find out what we are doing, and this can be replicated all over Nepal, and also I can confidently say that it can be replicated all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Bangi, you come from Uganda, from Alternatives to Violence Project, and you also have been turning people from revenge to reconciliation. What is your secret, and how do you do it?
The secret about Alternatives to Violence Project is that we target individuals. We provoke them to realize and appreciate the fact that they have the potential to address the conflicts around them using their natural resources within them. There is that power within you that can tell you, instead of being violent, there is a way you can go about it. And we have workshops which are very interactive. People reflect about their bad experiences, the pains they have had, the traumatic experiences, and through the sharing, they discover a lot about themselves, how much they can do to address, really, to solve conflicts around them.
And Banji, tell us more about your work with the refugees from South Sudan.
Just like I've said, we work with refugees from South Sudan, and these are people who have lived a history of conflict that is ethnic-based, especially among the prominent tribes of, or ethnic groups of Nuer and Dinka. So what we do, in these interactions, we make them realize that actually they face the same challenges. It's not that the Dinka is different from a Nuer. They have the same challenges, they have same problems, and they can deal with them in the same way. And we have really seen a tremendous change amongst those refugees.
Excellent. And what do you need to move forward?
Well, we need support from each one of us to make sure that we increase the number of peace agents amongst the refugee communities.
Great. Thank you very much, Banji. So now we have Tola. Tola is from Nigeria and works for Civil Society Coalition on Sustainable Development. His organization has been working on trafficking of youth and women in Nigeria. Nola, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just like you have said, and later on you are going to watch the video that's going to be shown, the kind of work that we are doing in the area of human trafficking, smuggling of persons, violence against children, and the issue of gender-based violence as well. Now, and when you look at all this, you will see that they are within the purview of SDG 16 targets 1 and 2, and even SDG 8, which has to do with the issue of a decent job. Now, my country has some challenges, actually many challenges, really. And you can begin to think of the issue of bad economy, the issue of unemployment, the issue of insecurity, with its attendant problem like kidnapping, killer S-men syndrome. You now have sectarian conflict as well as the issue of corruption. Now, when you bring all these together, they actually provide an avenue or an opportunity even for the young people to wanting to leave the country. And we are so much concerned, especially about those who have to travel through the frontiers of the West African communities. We are much more concerned even about the young people, both men and women, that will have to travel by road to Niger Republic, that's the northern part of the country. We are concerned about several days that they have to wait for the truck that will have to load them like logs of wood en route the way to Libya. We are actually concerned about the horrendous experience that these young people actually face from time to time, especially in the desert, where there is an inclement weather. We are concerned about even recording of the loss of death, sometimes even in the desert. And we are concerned about those who actually made it to Libya in the hands of the locals who actually swindle them. And they treat them like slaves until they are able to regain their freedom. And then they continue their journey to the Europe through the Mediterranean Sea. We are concerned about those who actually couldn't even make it because the kind of boat that they are using will eventually capsize because of overloading. And then they perish there in the sea. We are concerned about those who eventually make it even up to the other side, but they are in the hands of the waiting border patrols who actually deal with them treacherously, who actually violate their rights. So now, what are we saying? There's a need even for us to do something about that, and that's what our NGO has been doing, especially organizing programs, sensitizing the people. We deploy every available means, every strategy to ensure that we have programs around this human trafficking. We have SMS campaign, we have poster campaign, we have what we call docudrama, which is a documentation within which we have, which is available on CD. And we also organize street theater. Now, the very essence of doing this is actually to discourage our youths and to enlighten our government that there's a need for them to do something about the situation in the country. And our plea is that you, the international community, you should come to our aid. And according to the tenets and principles of SDG 17, which has to do with partnership, we are calling you, we are ready to partner with you. Let us campaign vigorously against human trafficking because it's an ill wind that doesn't do anybody any good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tola. Thank you, Tola. I think I can't add anything else to that. That's thank you very, very much. Bianca, you come from the Philippines.
Yes, I do.
From the Center for Peace Education and We Peace.
Yes.
Tell us more.
Okay, so I'll start with a story. So the night before the first day of my project, one of our trainers tearfully shared an unforgettable experience where she had stood in between two families who were ready to kill each other in the name of justice. As she told her story, she was crying, not out of sadness, but of reaffirmation of her role as a mother who stood her ground and asked both families to think of their children before committing such acts of justice. That night, nobody got killed. Her story is only one of the many stories of women, of mothers who are at the front line of peace and conflict. Mothers naturally resolve conflicts in their homes and even communities. They are mediators without even knowing it. Mothers who often chit-chat unintentionally spread news on health, environment, and even issues on violence against women and children. They are key sources of information without even knowing it. And in times of crisis, mere intuition makes mothers readily organize themselves, their families, and their communities. They are responders and community organizers without even knowing it. So without even knowing, these women have put themselves at the front line of peace, yet when brought to a higher level of participation in leadership, decision-making, peace processes, and negotiations, the women at the front line are the same women that are sidelined. The Women's Agency in Keeping the Peace, Promoting Security, or We Peace, has capacitated women, particularly mothers, from 4 provinces in the Philippines, addressing 4 different conflict lines, such as clan wars, displacement in Mindanao, and tribal wars and development aggression in Luzon. And actually, the jacket I'm wearing is actually a weave from the women we've trained. And so We Peace carried the intention to make women realize their interventions not only prevent conflict, but further prove their indispensable role in peace building. This is why accountable and inclusive institutions, monitored action plans, and an encompassing 2030 agenda, such as the SDG 16+, not only creates an interesting year-end report, but actually benchmarks the kind of society generations who have not been born will inherit. As of May this year, We Peace has trained 83 women who relearn their rights, refine their skills, and plan activities for peace. We have 83 women who realized that what we shared was nothing new to them, because aside from being mothers, they have been long-time peace builders. And we have 83 women who I hope will one day pass on their story, also in tears of reaffirmation and knowledge that the world, its leaders, policies, laws, and norms conspire to never again have them sidelined. So these are our women at the forefront of their homes, building their families, but also at the forefront of their communities, building peace. These are our women, and for peace. This is We Peace. Thank you.
Thank you. So, what a wonderful set of first presentations. We will have now a round of questions for our experts, and then we will move to the video and some other good stuff. So, who would like to start the discussion? Jordan, do you have a question, please? No? In the back, the gentleman in the back, please. Okay. If no.
Thank you so much. My name is Hassan. I'm from Islamabad, Pakistan, and I have a question. Okay. Can you guys hear me now? Okay. Okay. Thank you. So my question is for Ms. Baloch and Ms. Dasgupta. I'm really happy that there's an initiative between India and Pakistan. My question is that have you guys received any government support, or has the governments of India and Pakistan recognized your initiative?
In short, not yet. But we are hopeful.
Well, me too.
Thank you very much. My name is Albert Yeliang. I am from WANEP, West African Network for Peace Building, and under the GPAC TAP Network project. And I'm hearing that she feels safe in her home. I want to know whether it was the law that prevented her, prevented further abuse, or there were some reconciliation processes afterwards, because the law is different from also reconciling the people if she has to feel more safe. To my brother from Nigeria, and we usually say in West Africa, they are our senior brothers, Big Brother Nigeria. I see the presentation to be about migration, probably more than trafficking. I may be wrong, but I would like to find out whether, what are some of your messages to the youth in terms of diversified livelihoods that can enable them look within, and to support efforts that can prevent this. Thank you very much.
We'll take a few more before turning it back to the panel. The two ladies here, the orange and the blue.
Thank you. I'm Nyon Susan from South Sudan, but I'm with the Global Network of Women Peace Builders. I'm Nyon Susan from South Sudan. I'm with the Global Network of Women Peace Builders as a Cora Wise Peace Building Fellow. My question goes to Bangarina Rana, and I will go to my brother from Nigeria too. So I have two questions. And for you, my brother from Uganda, I know we have been in Uganda for decades, since before independence. And recently, there has been a serious conflict between the host community and the refugees from South Sudan, especially in Arua side in West Nile. And a lot of non-governmental organizations were attacked because the host communities felt like they were not employed and all these things. And there's so many conflicts going. How is your organization trying to build that peace between the host community and the refugees, especially when the refugees felt very vulnerable by being attacked by the host communities? Another question is, how are you working on issues of allegation regarding to some of the corruption with the refugees, support from the UN. That's one, two questions. My brother from Nigeria, how are you helping? Because we all heard about these mass immigrations. How are you trying to help women, especially and girls? Because there is issue of trafficking, sexual exploitation, where women are being kept hostage. How are you trying to advocate for the trafficking of women and children, women and girls who are being sexually exploited and taken somewhere across Africa? Because I'm sure most of the people who cross, like the young people, they are looking for opportunities for job. How are you also coordinating that with the government to create opportunities for young people to continue staying at home?
Great, thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Soumya from Youth for Peace International. My question is, as we are working on creating more peace agents around the world, but most of the peace builders are facing the problem of protection. So how, as a global community, we can come together or create a support mechanism for them? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Namati?
Thank you so much. I'm Coco Lammers from Namati and the Global Legal Empowerment Network. A few things that our network keep mentioning to us as some of the biggest challenges towards implementing SDG 16 are the lack of financing and adequate protection for people who are carrying out this work. So I'd be curious to hear from you if that has been your experience and if you have any ideas on how we can kind of move forward on that. And then additionally, SDG 16 is sort of an enabler, and how are you seeing this space, and the opportunity to kind of use your creative experiences and projects to help accelerate this in your context? Thank you.
Here, last question before we bring it back to the panel.
Thank you so much. Excellent interventions. My name is Mikiko Sawanishi, working for the UN Democracy Fund. Some of you may know, maybe not. Okay, I just want to say it's excellent. I just want to tell, this is not a question, but if UN Democracy Fund is linking the UN with civil society organization around the world directly, and I have been really seeing excellent project and activities by motivated, committed civil society organization. So I just want to say, open for call is always open, November, so please apply. The last question is related to the question raised. But our financing is really limited, unfortunately. And many organizations, civil society organizations, try to be more self-sustainable. I just doing some activities and raising income. So I just want to know if you have any ideas how to be self-sustained. Thank you.
This is a great set of questions for our wonderful panelists. We still have another set of speakers as well, so stay tuned, stay here, and we return here. So Kate?
Thank you for the excellent question. I think it's a really important point about whether this is just the law or reconciliation also. And I would say, I can't speak for Claudia herself, but what we did see with that case was that one of the main deterrents was when there was, in the first month, there was a violation of the restraining order, and the police immediately showed up. And that really deterred, I think, any future issues between her spouse and her. And additionally, we work with traditional indigenous leaders on peace building within the communities and talking about violence against women and changing attitudes. So I think that part of how we look at reconciliation and bringing communities together and talking about peace and prevention of violence is also a critical component that helped this woman, Claudia, feel more supported within her community and safer.
Great, Kate. Thank you so much. Doctor?
Yeah, similar line. We also, when we work, first we go to the selected area where we want to work. We hear the voices of all the mothers group, the community, the local authorities, youth, women. So after hearing to them what is needed there, that we focus on, And our success, in fact, is due to the inclusion of the local authorities themselves. They become part and parcel of our planning process and even during the implementation. So that is very helpful. And also the local women and youth, they are from that area. Those, as I gave example earlier, those who were in the revenge mode, they gradually came to become the peace volunteer and eventually the peace ambassadors, and they returned back to their place where they were displaced from. So that is the beauty of the program. Thank you.
Wow, that's great. So local authorities have become themselves advocates of the program. Excellent. Bangi, there were a few questions directed to you as well.
Thank you so much, my sister from South Sudan. I will try to respond to the two questions. One about involvement of the host community. The one which was put in the press is just one among the many. There are even more that are at the family level. But what we do in our intervention as an organization, we apportion the involvement of the host community and refugees. So when we have an activity like a workshop, we have 30% host community members and 70% refugees. So we do that, and we do a lot of involving the leaders. On the issue of corruption, well, I will not talk about the corruption of the government officials, because that one is being handled. Some of the issues are in court. But for us to minimize at the intervention level as an organization, sometimes if there are regulations, so if you were going to intervene in a refugee settlement, you have to go through people. They don't just allow you to go to the community. They are the leaders. And sometimes there are levels of corruption whereby you contact someone to get you participants. He looks for friends and relatives, and you find that you are dealing with these people. So what we do, we have prior visits and try to interact with a number of people, not just one contact person, to minimize that level of corruption and see that a number of people who are from a diversity of community membership are really represented in our activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Bangi. Tola?
Yeah, thank you very much for your questions. I think there are quite a number of them, but I will just do justice to a few of them. Beginning from my brother there, our big brother of Africa, which is Nigeria, it faces its own challenges, really, maybe because of the bigness. You see, that's why we are facing these challenges, unlike the case of Ghana. But then we still remain the giant of Africa in terms of size. Now, you are concerned about the issue of migration, that you had the feeling that this project is within the purview of migration. I want to let you know something. Migration is such a vast field of knowledge that you still have some other segments under it. And if care is not taken, then you begin to misinterpret it. As a matter of fact, when you look at the issue of smuggling of persons and human trafficking, they are a form of irregular migration. Some people are not even comfortable with the issue of illegal migration. That's why you now have irregular migration. But essentially, our project focuses on the issue of human trafficking and smuggling of persons, so that we have to be careful. We have to narrow down the area of interest to us, really. And then you also asked the kind of messages that we have been passing to the youth. The kind of messages we've been passing to them is the fact that there's a need for them to be discouraged from being trafficked, because there are other opportunities, which leads to the question asked by my other sister over there. So there are a lot of opportunities actually there at home. In Africa, generally, we are really blessed with both human and material resources. But unfortunately, the kind of leaders that we have, they are the ones actually putting us into further poverty. Not that we don't have the resources. So we encourage this youth to say, look inward. There are a lot of opportunities for you. And part of what we do is to actually build their capacity so that they're able to reason for themselves, so that they're able to have, be open to opportunities around them, rather than to say, yes, please come and smuggle me. Beyond that, we also organize skills acquisition for them. So that, because the problem that we are having really has to do with the way people actually reason. That there are a lot of things that people can actually get done rather than thinking of, oh, let me go outside of the country and eke out a living there. But beyond that, we also have a sort of information hub whereby they come, the prospective migrants, so to say now, they come for information, we advise them on the way they need to go. If you don't have the right documentation, there's no point going, and that's why we are discouraging the issue of irregular migration. Then concerning the question raised on the issue of gender-based violence and sexual exploitation. Now, we have been making some effort. As a matter of fact, Nigeria has its own gender policy. But beyond that gender policy, there are some states that actually came up with their own policy on human trafficking, which is in operation. So what remains is, because one thing is for you to have a policy, another thing is to make it workable. So what remains is to ask the necessary authorities to implement it. And whoever is found culpable, then should be dealt with. Then on the issue of financing, just briefly, I know my time is up. On the issue of financing for SDGs, then you will know that if you look at SDG 17, which has to do with partnership, then you have a means of financing for development. Then you will see that there's a need for us as civil society now to partner even with the private sector. I was trying to explain it the other time, but there was no time for me. Now, the private sector, because of what they are going to bring on board, because of what they are going to bring to the table, there's a need for government to partner with them. Without doing that, it may be very, very difficult for government to attain SDGs by year 2030. Then there's a need even to raise funds locally as well. We need to look inward for resources, even to implement our project. I think doing that is going to help us a lot. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Tola. Thank you very much. And last, Bianca?
So I'm going to address the two. On protection of peace builders. We Peace, actually, one of the outcomes of this project is we want to create an all-women peacekeeping teams. So the issue of protection is very much a concern for us. And this is unarmed peacekeeping, by the way. So I think what has helped is really engaging and dialoguing with, the available government agencies, security agencies that can help, even if you don't see eye to eye. That's one. Neutrality is it's a slippery slope because you're not completely neutral. The second, on financing, I think the frame of mind here is always when you make a project or when you propose a project, it's for the project to go on without you. So it's really sustainability should really be included. And I think it's also finding all means available, such as mechanisms, budgets from the government, and whatever is there, it's an accountability issue. So I think it goes hand in hand. You have to hold government agencies accountable because the activities that we do actually support their work. So it's not working in silos. I guess that would help the financial aspect of it. Thank you.
Great, Bianca. And last but not least, the dynamic duo.
Thank you. This is to kind of address the question on security for peace builders. I think it's inherently a political question because peace is political. And I think the issue of protection of peace builders should the onus should be on organizations like the UN, who have the massive advocacy and lobbying power with governments to kind of advocate that peace builders be allowed to be given security and be given protection. And I think potential ideas of developing global consortium of peace builders, developing a charter for protection of peace building agencies and peace building agents, I think these could be potential solutions because of advocacy with governments and in an essence to not particularly depoliticize the issue of peace building, but try and convince governments, and here I digress into the realms of idealism, to kind of convince governments that peace builders don't necessarily pose a threat to political systems. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I feel that we have been given a challenge, the challenge of protection, protecting the space and expanding the space of civil society, not only safety-wise, but also in the mindset of the negotiations across the street and in the mindset of implementing the 2030 agenda. We truly can't do it without civil society, without the private sector, and certainly without the passion that all of these fellow leaders have explained today. So please give them a round of applause. And now we will turn back our attention to the graphic recorder and to John, who will tell us a little bit about the story that has been developing there, and then we will turn back to our second set of speakers. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Jimena, and to the wide range of experiences that we've just heard about. I think it's important to think that these are really just snapshots of all of the great work that these colleagues are doing and the ones that we'll hear from going forward. It's a brief snapshot. The videos even that we've received from these colleagues that has led up to this point are still even just a small snapshot of the things that they're doing. And so in order to do justice to the work that they are doing, what we thought, and especially because the campaign had a video element, a visual element to it, instead of drafting a report from this meeting, which, let's be honest, maybe none of you may read a full report, we thought it would be great to represent these stories visually. And so we have our colleagues here from ImageThink, who, personally, it's incredibly impressive, synthesizing a huge amount of information that we've just heard. I know when we talk about reporting, putting reports together, it's incredibly difficult to do. But synthesizing all of this information in something that's a bit more visually appealing, and that we can also, again, it's kind of a map, so to speak, a mind map of everything. So throughout the course of the day, we'll obviously, our colleagues from ImageThink will elaborate on this much further. And we hope that this serves as inspiration for not just the colleagues here, but the colleagues who we've heard from, the storytellers, but also some of their partners as well. We hope that this serves as an inspirational piece, and again, something that connects us with colleagues a bit better than some of the traditional reporting mechanisms that we have around the HLPF. So trying to be a little bit different and hope that it's useful for you and your colleagues, and we hope that you'll share this going forward. And again, all of the information, all the videos, you can find on our website. So if you do want to follow up more with these colleagues that you've heard from and that you will hear from, it's on all the videos are now on our website. It's voicesofsdg16plus.org. So there's much more there and much more to come. So Jordan, back to you.
So big boots to fill from the first panel. I think we might have it covered though. So you can see the biographies of everyone in this small little booklet. I'm not going to introduce them to save some time. And we're going to keep this very conversational. We're going to have time for question and answers in the middle, and then we might come back to the panel with some more questions. So, Ismail, you're first up. So, Ismail, you come from Somaliland. Many people in this room have heard quite a bit, actually, about Somaliland and what they're doing on SDG 16+, but maybe not all have. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Thank you, Jordan, and thanks to everyone in the room. Before I go to what we are doing at the SDGs, let me give you some overview in my organization and where I am from. I work for Center for Policy Analysis. In 2014, when we graduated our second degree, we established this platform and in order to create where the citizens and the decision makers can at least engage each other and the citizens can hold accountable with the decision makers. And the most interesting thing is we were paying for the first 5 years in our pocket what we were doing. For the last 5 years, we hosted more than 14 public discussions where 75 panelists, including the Chief Justice, the key ministers, attended. And the citizens got an opportunity to ask them their concerns. When we come to the SDGs, and I'm from Somaliland, an unrecognized state internationally, but we are democratically elected leaders, and also we have active civil society organizations. And not being recognized, it doesn't stop us to engage the world and to present, like, for example, this forum is what we have done inside. So mostly the civil society organizations and the leaders take the messages. In Somaliland, what we have done for the SDGs, we established Somaliland SDG 16 Plus Coalition. Is the first time that the civil society come together and establish a forum which directly works for the improvements. For since one of the highlights we have done was at least we localized the SDGs and translated into the local language. For example, the 17 goals of SDGs we translated into Somali. One of the members of the coalition translated into Somali. We engage with the leaders and give them training. For example, the decision makers, we give them training and at least explain to them their responsibility. So at least awareness raising reached from decision makers up to the citizens. And also for the platforms we created, it helped the civic citizens to engage the leaders and hold accountable. For example, if the politicians didn't see some people who are approaching them and asking them, why didn't you do this? They will not do this. The good thing is Somaliland, this National Development Plan, which is 5 years time, is aligned with the SDGs. And I think it's one of the few nations in Africa which their National Development Plan is directly aligned with the SDGs. And today, we are very proud that we produced the first SDG 16 Plus Progress Report from Somaliland in New York. And we presented, and it has a lot of things. One of the key challenges, I will mention only 2 key challenges during when we are preparing the report. One of them was that there is a limited access to justice, or the access to justice is only in the urban areas, not reaching the rural areas. The other thing is data gap. For example, there is a data available in some places, but it's not meaningful because, for example, the cases in the courts, they will say to you, we have 14,000 cases. So you don't know how many people were involved. The other thing is sometimes the leaders, they don't need to share with you, including the civil society and international organizations, because there is no active coordination. There is a statistics law, but it's not enforced. The third thing is sometimes the data is not available or are not recorded. So all these things we talked about our SDG 16 Plus report. So
thank you, Ismail. So sounds really great. So you have a coalition, you've come together for a progress report. What are the next steps? What do you need to take this work forward?
For example, now at least the good thing is we have a baseline. After 5 years or 4 years later, we can know if we made a progress about SDG 16 Plus. So at least we have a baseline at this time. This report is the baseline. The second thing is now we are doing all these issues voluntarily. We are paying all expenses in our pockets. So if we get, for example, some support for the people who signed this commitment, as a Somaliland, officially we didn't sign, but still we are taking the responsibility. So if we get a support from the people who signed, who need to reach the agenda of 2030, now the first 5 years has gone. So we need your support. So we at least we can solve the access justice issues and data issues. So all these, if we get the support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ismail. Okay, so we're going to turn to Justine. So Justine, tell us a little bit about your work connecting SDG 16 Plus with the Women, Peace and Security agenda in Cameroon.
Okay. For me, the Women, Peace and Security agenda and the SDG 16 enable each other. And for Women in Alternative Action, we are actually at the forefront of peace building in Cameroon. And as a member of GPAC, we focus more on the prevention rather than reaction to violent conflict or to armed conflict in order to promote the Sustainable Development Goal 16. And based on this, we carry out peace education programs at different levels. We, for example, organize summer programs for kids between the ages of 5 and 15 to teach them about peace notions and how it is important to coexist, especially in the context like Cameroon, where the French language supersedes the English language and there are cultural issues. We also run peace clubs in schools where we go to secondary schools and primary schools and teach them about peace issues, peace notions. And also we organize youth think tank clubs for peace. And in these think tank clubs, we try to train the youth, or we empower the youth to become youth champions for peace. Based on what we do, we also organize essay writing, essay competitions, and offer peace awards to children who come out victorious or who are winners. And then, as I said, the Kids Summer Program is one of the niche of the niche for the children, because it calls on children during the holidays to come together and then to play together and really learn from one another. With regards to, the peace work or the Women, Peace and Security Agenda and the SDG 16, we empower women. We have created the Women, the Peace Queens for Peace initiative, which is an initiative that brings together wives of traditional leaders as community peace builders. Also, princesses and female traditional leaders to be able to bring peace, drive the peace agenda at the level of the communities. We are currently empowering them with advocacy tools so that they can be able to participate meaningfully in the dialogue, inclusive dialogue, that we really need in Cameroon to be able to address the crises that are happening in the Northwest and Southwest regions. So they are using these advocacy skills, their knowledge, to be able to advocate for inclusive dialogue and also to bring lasting solutions to the issue of the Anglophone issue, as well as other crises, other domestic violence that women face at the level of the communities. So we are redesigning the peace table to have the voices of everyone included, the youth, the women, as well as vulnerable groups. With regards to the VNR, Cameroon is currently under review during this HLPF, and Women in Alternative Action collaborated with the Global Partnership for the Prevention of Armed Conflict to be able to come up with an alternative report to complement the government report, which will be presented here at the New York. And based on our experience, we think that there is a lot that has to be done. Our findings show that Cameroon cannot achieve SDG 16 successfully if the issue of the Anglophone and if the Anglophone crisis is not, resolved. So we think that being here is an opportunity for us to, showcase or to amplify the voices of community women who cannot come to the UN, to tell you how they are suffering, to tell you that their children have not been to school for close to 5 years now. So we believe that with the report that we have come out with and the recommendations that we have in the report, we will be able to, if the stakeholders actually implement those recommendations, there will be a way forward for Cameroon.
Thank you, Justine. So just very, very quickly, would you be able to tell us a little bit about the process for engaging in the VNR? What were your lessons learned, and maybe what would you like more support on in the future? Because I assume that you'll try and do it next time.
So in the process, as I said, we collaborated with the Global Partnership for the Prevention of Armed Conflict, and through them we were able to have get into the process, because GPAC facilitated collaboration with UNDP that connected us with the government body, the Ministry of Economy and Planning, that is working on the SDGs. And through that, we were able to contribute, bring our findings to the process. We had field research, DEX review that enabled us to understand what is happening on the ground and to be able to contribute to this national review process in Cameroon. But living from here, we will be expecting that the international community can also speak about the Anglophone crisis. We know that the UN is supposed to do something, but they are not saying anything. We expect the Security Council to talk about the case of Cameroon, but nothing is being done. So our recommendation would be that if all these faces I see here, the SDG voices can join us in a petition to the Cameroon government and even to the UN and the AU, probably something will be done for us in Cameroon. But also, as women's activists, I know that we need support, we need more capacity building to be able to engage in the process of inclusive dialogue that we are waiting to happen in the nearest future.
Fascinating. Thank you so much, Justine. So we're going to go next to Umi. So Umi, you're from the Kesha Alliance. You work up in Garissa County in Kenya. Can you tell us a little bit about your work with young people?
So my name is Mulkhair Harun Mohammed, and I come from Kenya, the northeastern part of Kenya, Garissa County. And Garissa County is a small town that makes up the bigger part of the northern Kenya. And looking at it, it's a region that has experienced long periods of marginalization, a lot of historical injustices, and one of them being the Wagala massacres, and I'm sure you've heard of those things. So I run the organization called Kesha Alliance, which is basically an intervention to promote quality education, youth, and women empowerment. And our slogan is educate to empower. We're basically using education to empower the masses, to ensure that they understand their civic roles, to understand the civic education that they need to have, so that we can fight the small challenges we have in our country, top of the list being corruption. So, yeah.
And so in your work, you do engage with SDGs, you engage with SDG 16+.
Yes.
How is it different working with young people and working with authorities, and what have you found?
So we work with the SDGs, and especially the SDG 16, which is one of the reasons why we're here. And our work has always been about the sustainable development goals, education being one of them. I advocate so much for education and peace in my community, because we have a challenge in matters peace. And where I come from, literally levels are very high. So the citizens and the electorates do not even understand their role when it comes to public participation, when it comes to understanding policy and governance, when it comes to matters of leadership. Even the educated youth are not well equipped with information. So I use the sustainable development goals to ensure that they're informed and they take part in policy formations and stuff like that. So as I said, the key problems being youth in my country are jobless, and idleness is one of the top problems that we have. And when a young mind is idle, then we are at risk, because there's a lot of things that they can come up with, owing to the fact that they're geniuses, and also the fact that we have also done a lot of advocacy, as I said, and currently one of the things that I can say we've achieved is getting partnership with my county government, Garissa County government. Kenya is a devolved country, so resources are coming down to the county levels. So I managed to convince my governor, and he's seen the potential that we have as young people. And I'm happy to say that we are working on an act, the Gender-Based Violence Act, to be passed in the county assembly currently. We are working with the youth MCA and the area governor. And GBV is also one of the other problems. So all these are still the advocacy programs that we do. And we also have passed the Youth Revolving Fund, which was launched recently. It's amounting to around 150 million Kenya shillings. But looking at that and the number of youth in my county, it's very small money, because you want to implement this and help young people get jobs and make them start their businesses, give them capital, but these are resources that are not enough. And maybe this is the intervention that we can come and maybe have interested partners to come and work with us to boost these programs that we're already doing in the county.
Thanks, Amy. I have loads more questions, but I'm going to save them
Yes.
so that others can. So, Kasha, you are a filmmaker, so obviously entering a video contest was probably a no-brainer for you. But please tell us a little bit about how your video work connects with the SDGs and SDG 16.
Okay, so I founded the Global Sunrise Project, which is a media hub for social good, out of the need for an alternative narrative to the mainstream media. The mainstream media can be quite sensationalized and overwhelming, and looks at the world through a lens of stereotypes and negativity. I just want to ask everybody in the room, who has ever felt overwhelmed or scared or sad when they watched the news, by a show of hands? So that's a lot of us, right? And what's missing from the narrative is the solutions, the fearless grassroots activists who are creating positive change despite adversity or a lack of resources. And I knew that I could use my talents in film and photography to share these stories, but also to get people to think differently about how they approach making change and how they approach the issues. And I wanted to empower them to take action on the SDGs, especially SDG 16+. And I want to stress that peace is a universal issue. I'm from Canada, but we should not be excluded from the discussions, and we should have our policies reflect the world that we want to see. And one of the 5 Ps of SDG 16 is participation. So we have an opportunity to be leaders and to participate in this discussion. And through my work with young people, through workshops about the SDGs, I hope that they become advocates and hold our leaders accountable to achieving the SDGs by 2030 or before 2030. Let's challenge them to do that.
We hope. Thanks. It's really nice to have the other perspective and to show your work internationally and domestically. So Sophia, we have 2 Sophias, one with a PH and one with an F. So we're going to go to the PH from Philippines first. Sophia, tell us about your work with young people in Philippines.
Hi everyone, so I'm Sofia Garcia. I'm part of the Young Women for Peace and Leadership program of the Global Network of Women Peace Builders implemented by the Center for Peace Education in the Philippines where I am local coordinator. We are a network of 38 young leaders from vastly different backgrounds, Muslims, Christians, indigenous peoples, LGBTQIA advocates, and even male allies. And what we do is we advance principles of human rights, gender equality, and even youth participation. And we believe that SDG 16 is can be achieved by giving so much importance on SDG 5, which is gender equality, that it should be at the center, or maybe it has synergies between all these SDGs. Furthermore, on how do we help contribute in SDG 16+, is that just recently, last year, we organized 3 youth fora in different places in the Philippines, wherein we talked about youth's participation and how they can contribute in building a culture of peace. And with those 3 fora, we have reached 4,000 youth from across the country. And based from the evaluation, they're more motivated to be agents of change, whether through big or small initiatives. Furthermore, for this year, we have, in the context of the midterm elections that recently happened in our country and the proposed constitutional change and the peace process on the Bangsamoro Organic Law, we have created or we have organized community youth discussions on these aspects and informing and raising the awareness of the youth that, you have the responsibility and you have the right to make your voices count by voting, but it does not stop there. Your civic duty is even beyond voting, that you have to make your leaders accountable at the end of the day. You have to make sure that their promises are being met. Or if not, how can we move forward as one community, or in our context, in the Philippines? Furthermore, in the Bangsamoro peace process, we have given opportunities in raising awareness on how this will affect the communities in Mindanao, and hopefully we have enlightened them on the importance that they have to participate in the transition of the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao. So not just that, but since our establishment in 2018, which was just last year, so we're still a baby, I think. So we have done local and international engagements. In the local level, we have 3 members who are members of the Youth Council, which shows that they are part of the decision-making processes in their areas. They meaningfully participate for the benefit of their communities. And in terms of international engagement, 3 of us, including myself, have been heard by the international community on the vital role of women and youth in terms of achieving peace and security, and the importance of their participation and implementation process, not just in the planning, but also in the monitoring evaluation of sustainable peace and different mechanisms and agreements. But given that, it shows that YWPL have given platforms for us to be heard as young women, that we too play a part in this global agenda, and we too can contribute something on the table. And lastly, in the context of the Philippines, we believe that Through our activities, through our initiatives, we hope to challenge the violent, misogynist, and indecent narratives present in Philippine politics and turn these into something more constructive and respectful dialogues that will promote peace, justice, and equality, wherein youth will be active participants. In a nutshell, advocating for SDG 16+. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sophia. Yeah. So I want to ask you some follow-on questions, but I'm going to hold on to them so that others can. So we can go to our other Sophia, who's come to us today from Kabul. So Sophia, tell us about your work with young people on SDG 16+, and how you're trying to engage them and make them work better with authorities.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I came from Afghanistan that there has been a lot of development, but we are still in war. This war has affected all of the people, including myself, and I'm one of those examples who have been affected by war. The war has forced us to flee to Pakistan during the Taliban, and we were living in poverty, away from homeland, and without paper. So that stirred a passion for me to work for my community and bring a change. I believe that the only way that we can bring changes by providing safe spaces for youth to come together, to talk with each other, decrease prejudices, and increase understanding. And that's the only way we can do is by promoting and advancing SDG 16 for a peaceful Afghanistan. At EPT, I have designed programs that have impacted over 20,000 youth across Afghanistan. We are working and promoting 2 theories of change: critical thinking and contact theory. In critical thinking, we believe that if students are build their critical thinking, they will challenge the status quo and they will reform arguments that are more peaceful. And also through contact theory, we would like to bring youth from different backgrounds to come together, to speak with each other, and the channel of communication became open, and that's how we built friendship and increased understanding. We are also working at EPT for inclusion of youth in decision-making process and also in the current peace talks with the Taliban. Last year, we worked on the first ever initiative of the selection of first Afghan youth representative to the UN, who traveled to the UN, spoke about the role of youth and why their voice matters. So he was one of the examples of the youth that they are working hard in Afghanistan for a change. We, as a group of young men and women, APT is our contribution for a peaceful Afghanistan. And we would like you to join us for this journey and amplify our voice by following us on Twitter through APT Youth. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sophia. So I suppose we're going to go to the floor now. One of the fantastic things I think about this panel is when you look at some of the context that people are working in, there is a danger of being fatalistic about how SDG 16 can make a difference. And we've seen here in all of their examples how it is making a difference and things are happening. So I think that's really fantastic. So please, questions from the floor, questions, not statements if you can, and as quick as possible so we can get as many people as possible. Thank you. Okay. And then here.
Hello, I'm Ed Almadar from the Partnership for Transparency. I have a simple question for the panel, and that is, why did they fail to engage the international financial institutions? The World Bank and the Regional Development Banks and the IMF all have policies which encourage action by CSOs under SDG 16. This is all documented in a study that was released just days ago by the Partnership for Transparency. I'd gladly talk with others of you about it, but I wanted to know why it had been missed by the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a question down here, and then question at the back, and then question here. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, hello, everyone. My name is Habiba Dahir, and I'm from ALC, King's College London. I had a question for Ismail from Somaliland, and you mentioned something about challenges of access to justice. There's also having that long time frame of lack of access to justice in these other areas. Most locals also preferred indigenous justice system. Do you think that impedes the actual justice system, or it also helps to fill that gap on the justice system itself? Thank you.
Okay, there was a question here. Just yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Akhrar, and I'm a representative of Thinkers Institute on International Law in Organizations, and I'm from Uzbekistan, Central Asia. And I think my question is to Sofia Ramyar. Security in Afghanistan and peace building and peacekeeping is not only an issue for Afghanistan, but it's an issue for Central Asia and for the globe as well. So my question would be, as a representative of your organization, what are the next steps to include not only the Afghan people, but other neighbors of your country as well, like Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, or Kazakhstan?
Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah.
Just a quickly, both Sophia, how old are you? Very impressive, both Sophia. I just want to know.
Okay, so this panel is making me feel old. Yeah. So there's a question there, and then Christina at the back. So I think Matt. Yeah. Oh.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm Matt. I work for the Mission of Liechtenstein. I have a couple of questions, short questions. One for Ismail from Somaliland. How would recognition help with the implementation of the SDGs in Somaliland? And one for Sophia from the Philippines. What's the impact of the Bangsamoro Organic Law on SDG 16 or vice versa? What's the interaction and what are the challenges? Thank you very much.
Okay. And then I think we'll take two more on this round. Lots of hands, which is good. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Maria Kasumbi. I work with Humanity United. Thank you so much for sharing your stories of how you implement SDGs. I just wanted to find out a question for each one of you, or especially Fajar, who talked about how you're aligning with the government. I just wanted to find out is, when you integrate the SDGs within the national planning process, do you also follow up into the budgeting? Is it also included in the national budgeting process? Thank you.
Okay. And then there was a final question, Christina at the back, and then we'll definitely get to the other hands. I've seen you. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Christine. I work for Global Partnership for the Prevention of Armed Conflict. Thank you very much for your inspiring stories. So this morning we heard how it is important, the localization of SDGs, and through research that we did together with Justine from Women in Alternative Action, one of the recommendations was that civil society must co-lead in the localization of the SDGs so that they address local priorities and strengthen capacities for peace, inclusion, and justice, involving relevant actors such as government and UN agencies. And my question is, if Justine can share more your experience of the role of civil society in localization, and also if you can emphasize the role of civil society as actor in oversight and monitoring actor of the implementation. So if you can share more experience on that.
Okay, fantastic. So let's start with Ismail, because there's a couple of questions to you, one about recognition, one about access to justice, but you may also like to speak to some of the other questions, which were about budgeting and national development plan and the localization.
I think I have at least 3, and I am the only male in the panel, so I will take all the time. No. I'm joking. Yeah. The question from my sister from ALC, I think I'm pronouncing the name correctly, right? Yeah, when we're talking about the access to justice, we are talking about SDG 16+. So we know that we have still a problem in Somaliland and it is limited to the urban areas now. And when you go to the rural areas, sometimes we have some mobile courts, but it is still doesn't reach. And sometimes when some conflict happen in the rural areas, instead of going court, because the court is like 200 kilometers or 100 kilometers away from them, so sometimes they fight because they don't have a court. So access to justice is mostly limited to the urban cities, and because of limited resources, because the government's budget mostly goes to security issues and is very limited, and the international support also is limited. That's for the access to justice. When we come to the issue of how the recognition of Somaliland can help the implementation of SDGs, it is because member states were the bodies who are responsible to implement the SDGs. Somaliland, internationally, they are not the ones who sign it, but they take a responsibility at least to implement the SDGs. And that is why they aligned their national development plan with the SDGs, all the SDGs. And also it prioritized and they take some to be the most priorities. So now we, as a civil society from Somaliland, are reporting the progress of SDG 16+. It was the government also to report, but they don't have that access. Only the civil society have the access. So I think if they get that access, they can report to the world what is going on the ground, and they can be accountable if they don't do something. But now they don't have that opportunity. I hope it will come one day. When it comes to the budget and of NDBs in Somaliland, I think nearly $2 billion. The estimation is supposed to have to implement the national development plan, but the government's budget is like 420 million, less than $500 million. So you know that there is a big gap. But the government prioritized it, and they said, okay, which are the most important areas we can implement or we can do the job. So that is how the government prioritized it. For other quick comment is the civil society, but the civil society engaged with the government. For example, I think one question was related for how the civil society was engaging with the government. Mostly, we engage the government sometimes because there are some skilled people in the civil society. So we share them with our experience about SDGs and anything else. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ismail. So Justine, a specific question on localization and your work around monitoring and evaluation as well, but feel free to answer the other questions as well.
Yeah, for the question that has to do with why we do not engage with financial institutions, I think that is, on our part, is an oversight, it's a limitation, but we think that that's an idea that we have to take to consider in our work so that we can have our work, supported or even by those financial institutions, but for them to also know what we are doing on the ground. With regards to localization, for Cameroon, when we're doing the national review, we realized that the targets that we selected, because we selected 5 targets on goal number 16 out of the 12 targets, we realized that the indicators that came with those targets were actually like elitist, they were global, but we had to contextualize those indicators and develop more, to suit the local realities, the realities on the ground. So in localization, there is a need for civil society to, make the population, the communities understand more on what the SDGs are, the SDG 16 is, but also to be able to develop more indicators based on the different targets of SDG 16. So with awareness raising and capacity building, civil society will be able to take to the communities, to the local levels, the meaning of SDGs, making SDG 16 very meaningful to the people by simplifying the language for their understanding. During our research also, especially during the validation workshop, it came out that there was a need to develop or kind of propose a national action plan on SDG 16 to be able to assess better the level of implementation within the country, and to see also how civil society organizations can contribute to the achievement of goal number 16 on peace, justice, and inclusive societies.
Fantastic. Thanks, Justine. Okay, we're going to go to Sophia because you had some specific questions. You had one around bringing Central Asian countries together. You had one about your age. You do not need to answer that. And you can also talk to the other questions as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a very tough question. So I think we should have someone from the government to answer that question. So in my capacity, I will answer that question. So yes, you're right that if Afghanistan is peaceful, I'm sure it won't be a threat to other countries. Not Afghan, but Afghanistan is a country that has been the battlefield for a lot of other countries. So cooperation of other countries will help these other countries, and I think international community can play a very huge role in this area. For another question of implementation of SDG 16 in Afghanistan with the government and our work aligned with them, we haven't been working closely with the government. That's an area that we have to more closely with the government, but we have received a lot of support for our work in Afghanistan. And I think that's all. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. So Umi, Kasha, and Sophia, we're going to come back to you in a second. We're going to open the floor back up so there's more questions, and then you can answer the first ones and the second ones as well. Okay, so I did see some hands, unless people have got scared before. Oh, no. Here we go. Okay, one question here. Thank you. And then here, yeah.
Hello? So the videos of your...
Sorry, just please introduce yourself. So
yeah, sorry, this is Vivek Trivedi from Namati. So the videos of your work are really what brought us all here together. And I wonder how much you use video, technology, social media to bring the communities that you're working with together, because there's different internet penetration all around the world. So is there access, and are you actively engaging in using multimedia technology and social media to bring together your communities?
Thanks, Vivek. Okay. So actually, we're just going to go to the back. Who hasn't asked the question? Sorry, the lady in the corner. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. My name is Aissatou. I'm from Senegal in West Africa. And my question is about decentralization context. If you are in the decentralization context, normally you will have a relation with your local authorities. And I want to know what the local government help you for better engage youth in the SDG 16. Thank you.
That's a fantastic question. There are going to be some local VNRs or whatever, local voluntary reviews that are presented this week. That's actually local authorities doing the work. So really great question there for the panel. Some other hands. There was two. Yep.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to probably go a bit practical on the achievements of the SDGs. I work with WANEP. I introduced myself earlier, so I thought that I needed to save time. In the case of Cameroon, I think that it requires some support, technically and also financially. And I'm saying that because WANEP produced a policy brief on the situation in Cameroon about 2 or so weeks ago. The BBC also reported on the situation. And now with this VNR report supported by the TAP network, GPAC, CSSP, has brought up a number of things, But the question that I want to ask, which of course is also one of the concerns for some people that want to support, is how willing is the government, or what is the attitude or posture of the government towards your efforts? The other question is, how are the women willing to participate or to be mobilized for action? How are you building their voices? And I'm saying that because it can happen. WANEP did that in Liberia, it did that in Cote d'Ivoire and several other places, and the women have the key. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, last question down here. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am Soumya from Youth for Peace International. My question is that we have a UN Security Council resolution 20-50 to support young people. So just wanted to understand and know how that resolution has helped your work or supported your work in terms of like going into the communities, approaching government, because SDG 16 is not institutionalized yet. We don't have a formal committee to see what work is going around SDG 16 formally, so just wanted to understand that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick rundown of the questions to refresh your memory, because there's a lot. Okay, so we have one about how you've used video in your work, one about your engagement with local authorities, one about the posture of government towards your work, one around women's political participation in your work, one about how 2250, the Security Council resolution on youth, peace and security, has enabled your work, engaging with international financial institutions, budgeting processes in government, civil society localization, and I think that might be it. And I'm going to add one more that I want you to end on, okay? So this will be the last round. If you come back here in 4 years' time on the next review of SDG 16, we want you to be telling a different, more positive story, that your work's got bigger, your work's got better, you've had more success. What needs to happen for that to take place? And we'll start with Sophia here.
All right, so I have a couple of questions to answer. So the first one, in terms of engaging financial institutions, maybe I would like to thank the gentleman who raised that up, because now we have an idea that we can explore partnerships with you. So thank you very much for bringing that up. And then for the second question on the Bangsamoro Organic Law and how it's related with the SDG 16, we all know in the Philippines that the passage of the Bangsamoro Organic Law is a product of decades of negotiations between the government and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. This organic law is seen as an instrument of peace, not just peace, but sustaining peace in the region. And you know that we all know that Mindanao is a conflicted area for many years as well. In relation to SDG 16, what's great about the transition to a new type of government is that representation is very vital. In the new proposed Bangsamoro government, all sectors are represented: youth, women, indigenous peoples, Muslims. So they are all consulted in this transition government. And in terms of sustaining peace, I think it shows the local ownership of the people on the ground, which makes them, it's a long time clamor of the Bangsamoro people to have their right to self-determination be recognized in the Philippines. And finally, after 40 years, we have the Bangsamoro Organic Law, which contributes that, you know, we don't need to wage war anymore. What we want has already been given, and we look forward to seeing that in the coming years. In terms of on social media use, yes, YWPL use social media. We have Twitter and Facebook. And what do we do using those platforms? Well, we have Twitter parties to commemorate different events, like last year, International Women's Day, when all of our members tweeted something on its importance. And in line with the Bangsamoro Organic Law, we use that as a platform to showcase our support that we have to say yes, we have to ratify this law now. And I think we are successful because the law is ratified. And we also do, in terms of voting and raising awareness on voters' education, we share what we've done offline, but we also upload it and calling people that youth decide. Youth say yes, youth has to vote. And fifth, on the UNSCR 2250, I think that in terms of our work, NGNWP, the Global Network of Women Peace Builders, have been very supportive with us, that they emphasize that the relationship of UNSCR 1325 and 2250 are complementing each other. And in terms of our work, we have been enlightened that we play an important role, based from my intervention a while ago, that, you know, we as youth have something to put in the table, and we are more than motivated to be part of this. And we commend the international community for recognizing this and having this as a Security Council resolution. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophia. Anyone that uses Twitter like that, I'm a fan of, so there you go. Kasia, over to you.
Okay, I guess I could answer two questions sort of in one. One about using media, multimedia, and
mobilize people and bring people together, and then also about 2250. I would say that those two subjects are pretty central to what we do at the Global Sunrise Project, and that's what we were founded upon, is engaging young people in the issues, the SDGs like 2250 and the Security Council Resolution 2250, and then using media as a platform to unite people and get them acting and get them out there, because often media is used as a tool to numb people, and we often check out because the issues are too hard, they're too much for us to do anything about them. So what I would say is that that there's kind of an awareness gap for young people. They know about issues maybe a little bit, they're informed, they know they want to do something, but they don't have these languages or these tools to act as a framework for them. So knowing about 2250 or knowing about the SDGs, they then have this information that they can take and personalize and act upon. So I would say that that's kind of what we do, and I hope that that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Kasia. Umi, over to you.
So I'll also try to answer a couple of questions, and why we fail to engage the World Bank and other financial institutions. And I'll speak as a grassroots activist. It's very hard to get these partners, especially when you know that they're there. But every time you try and email them, especially for me, I've tried to email World Bank several times, but I've just gotten blank responses. So maybe if you're in a position to help us get to them, or if you have a direct link, I would really appreciate that, because it would impact the projects that we're doing. So we can have a chat after this, inshallah. And then, do we use videos in our projects? Yes. And if you have time, I could share the full video of what I submitted. There's a section where we are generating digital posters of young people sharing their messages of peace. So we have a portrait of young people and then different messages of them advocating for different thematic areas surrounding the SDG 16. So when you share them online, then it creates a ripple effect where other young people come on board and they ask you to make such posters for them, and they end up sharing. So you kind of have an active social media network that's passing peaceful messages. So that's how we've used videos to advance our projects. Maybe if there's any other I could answer.
Thanks so much, Umi. So, Justine, Ismail, Sophia, if there would be some, closing remarks or any comments you'd like to respond to from those questions. Sophia?
Yes, so the other question has been responded, and that's also fit to our organization. I just want to comment on the resolution 2250. I'm proudly saying that we, together with UNY and a few organizations, we advocated for resolution 2250 from 2018 up to 2015. We traveled to UN, spoke at the Security Council, and finally the Security Council was passed. So that's a resolution that we owned ourselves. And then we started localizing for this resolution in Afghanistan, and that resolution inspired us to work on the selection of the first Afghan youth representative, which I shared before with you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophia. Justine, Ismail.
With regards to videos, using videos.
Closer to the mic, yeah.
We actually do use videos a lot, peace videos. We produce peace videos, and we place them on social media for a wider dissemination of our message. If you go to YouTube, you will find one of the videos that we produced together with GPAC. It is called The Stroke of Peace. So you can get there and you'll see how we use that space to be able to pass across a message of non-violence. I want to thank the colleague from WANEP for amplifying our voices on the support we have been, requesting from the international community, but also from, us present here. Talking about the government's position on, whether they support the work we are doing or not. I think with the crisis in Cameroon, it's a very difficult situation, because it's difficult for us to access those zones to be able to do the work we are doing successfully. But it takes it takes political will of the government to be able to put an end to the crisis. If the government actually wants to, stop the crisis, they will do it because so far nothing has been said. I mean, instead they're using the military central approach to be able to resolve issues that can easily be resolved if everybody comes to the peace table for negotiation. On how women are engaged, yes, my organization is a member of a coalition of women-led organization known as SNOT. That was the Southwest Northwest Women Task Force for Peace. This is a coalition of women, you know, advocating for peaceful solutions to the ongoing crisis. And through this coalition, we organize so many activities like, you know, lamentations. We go to the public places and carry out lamentations, crying for the children who are not going to school, brothers who are being killed, who are even living in the bushes. I mean, asking for the crisis to be resolved. We also organize press conferences to raise awareness on the impact, the direct impact women have on the direct impact of the crisis on women and children. We have also instituted the Orange Black Wednesdays, which you know, on every second Wednesday and last Wednesday of the month, the coalition members wear orange and black as a symbol to show that we are actually calling, I mean, raising awareness on the issue and calling for the governments, international communities to say something to put an end to the crisis. So we as women are engaging like the Liberian women. Yeah.
Thanks so much. That's incredible. Thank you, Justine. Ismail, final remarks.
Thank you, Jordan. Let we thank first for IBI for hosting us, and let we clap them. I like them really, and I need, maybe I will come back. For the use the media or social media for your programs, yes, I can say, for example, our programs reached more than 1 million viewers for the last 5 years. Some of them, they have 250,000, even we have a small number. So our programs mostly focus through the social media, since they are very viral. And there are no limitations in our area for the social media. That is one. And when we are talking about the media itself and SDGs, I think it will be one of the initiatives from this meeting itself. The media are the ones who are the bridge between the people, and they are the ones who are taking the message. So we must educate more with the media. Since I have a media background, from now on I was going to focus on the media to SDGs for that initiative, at least in order to educate, because we have a lot of problem in our local areas. And also for the youth engagement to SDGs, we have the first youth leadership program in our area, because every time, I was telling this morning that every time 27 years ago, my teacher was telling me that I'm the future. 27 years later, still I'm the future. So we are going to tell the youth, we train the youth that they are not the future, but they are the current leaders. Our youth from around the world, they lead. For example, Mark Zuckerberg, he's younger than me, and he has some initiatives, but in our country, still we are youth. We don't have that position. So we give the youth also a space to become the current leaders and to take the message to the front. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ismail. So, Umi, you wanted the final word. Okay,
yes.
So you have one more final word. Over to you.
No, I forgot to mention part of the interventions that we're doing currently with the county government. We're implementing a project called the Education for Justice, E4J, which is being done at the county level. So if anyone is interested, I would be happy to share more. It's basically increasing advocacy on having an informed citizen to let the young people understand how advocacy and all this works. And also, we are currently working on the recommendations that we handed to the county government and the national government. If you've seen the video, we did a project called the Youth eSpace. So the recommendations that came from the young people, and they asked for empowering them with skills and knowledge. So those are the kind of recommendations that we're currently working on. So if anyone wants to partner or even wants to visit Kenya, I'll be happy to host you there. Thank you.
We might take you up on that visiting offer.
Yes.
So, okay, we're going to come to a close here. Jimena, you're going to just give some closing remarks, but Can the panelists from the first panel also come on stage? I think it would be really nice for everybody to be up here, all 13 together. If you want to find out more about the campaign, if you want to find out more about these individuals' work, we have an exhibition space in the UN building. It's on the first floor between the Secretariat building and the conference buildings.
Yeah,
over to you, Jimena.
Thank you so much. And so, as you've seen now, this is more than an event. It's like a movement that we need all of you to help us really spread the word that in order to achieve the 2030 agenda, we really need civil society, people, private sector at the center. And honestly, this could not have been possible without the really dedication and passion of my colleague here. Yeah, ladies join us. John Romano and Jordan. I think we need to really thank them. And I feel that we also need to thank our 13 partners. Thank you very much for all the support and the great work. And last but not least, thank you. Thank you for coming and thank you for inspiring us, and hope we can continue encouraging you and supporting you. Thank you very much.